Huawei is selling its budget brand smartphone unit Honor. It's after U.S. sanctions have restricted supplies to the company. China says there are no local CCP virus cases, but claims cases were imported on food product packaging from 20 countries. The countries consider these claims to be baseless. A British diplomat saved a drowning Chinese woman while other Chinese people were watching from the side. Why had no one else tried to save her? The Chinese Communist Party's media mouthpieces went full throttle and insulted U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. It's after he made comments about Taiwan. And U.S. President Trump continues fighting against the Chinese Communist Party. And China is hoping Joe Biden wins the election, expecting Biden to take a softer stance against them. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Huawei is selling its budget brand smartphone unit Honor. The consortium buying Honor said today it's a move to keep the company alive.
Huawei is selling off its budget smartphone arm Honor. A group of over 30 agents and dealers want to salvage the company. Canalys market research data says that Honor accounts for 24% of its smartphone sales. U.S. sanctions on Huawei have restricted supplies to the company on national security grounds. The group announced the purchase Tuesday by a newly created company called Shenzhen Jiaxin Information Technology. Huawei issued a statement saying they will not hold any shares in the new company. They also said that the company has been under pressure due to persistent unavailability of technical elements for its phone business. No figure was given for the deal. U.S. sanctions have affected all ranges of Huawei phones. Huawei announced in August it would be unable to continue making the Kirin chips that power its premium models. An analyst at IDC, Will Wong, says it will be easier for Huawei to make a potential buyback in the future from this consortium. That might not be so easy if they sell it to other smartphone or electronics makers. A Reuters source said Honor will look for more investment partners in the future, with the possibility of an eventual listing.
The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, claims it has successfully controlled the spread of the virus. But now cases are on the rise, and Beijing is blaming it on other countries' food imports.
China says it's been finding traces of the CCP virus in food imports. That's including German pork, Indian fish, and Brazilian beef. However, foreign officials are saying the claims are baseless. According to Reuters, Canada called China's testing and then rejecting of imported foods unjustified trade restrictions. The comment came during a recent World Trade Organization meeting. A number of countries have shown support for Canada's stance, the US, Mexico, Britain, Australia, and Brazil among them. Despite China blaming food products for importing the virus, a Reuters report says one Beijing-based diplomat said China has not yet released any lab results or evidence to back up the accusation. Both the CDC and the Food and Drug Administration have stated that food and product packaging are not virus transmission sources. Beijing's claim comes amid a surge of virus cases across several provinces in China. The Chinese regime has a history of redirecting responsibility when it comes to the virus. In the early periods of the pandemic, China pushed the theory that the virus did not originate in Wuhan, instead attempting to pin it on American soldiers who visited the city. China also made similar accusations of France and Italy. Recent rises in confirmed CCP virus cases in China can be seen in Shanghai, Shandong, and Xinjiang region, among other areas. This is Don Ma, NTD News.
Hong Kong's first socially distanced entertainment park is opening to the public. Located at the harbor front of the Central District, it's one way the entertainment industry has pivoted to cope with the CCP virus.
It's a place to come to socialize during the pandemic. This outdoor area is dotted with 100 enclosed areas. Each have seating for between 2 and 4 people in areas measuring 27 square feet. There's a gap of 5 feet between each enclosure, so groups are kept at a distance from each other. This park has been built as a response to CCP virus measures. Visitors are keen to get out of their homes and socialize, but they want to minimize the risk of catching the virus.
It's been a long, hard year locked inside for the majority of it, so it's nice to be able to sit outside with some friends, have a drink, enjoy a film. I'm really looking forward to it.
This resident has come to watch the classic shark horror film Jaws. It's been a challenging time across the world for the entertainment industry. With large gatherings ruled a clear danger zone, bringing people together for cinema, theaters, and gigs is a tough sell.
So we have to really rethink and be creative about a solution we can find to address the challenges of COVID-19. We have to reinvent, reiterate, and rejuvenate the events industry with clever concepts that can deliver safe entertainment for consumers to enjoy.
Wilson's company is organizing this outdoor event. Apart from movies, this location also offers other activities including live music performances and yoga classes. Measures at the outdoor park include temperature checks, mandatory face masks, hand sanitizers at each entry and exit point, and regular cleaning. The cinema had a trial screening last Friday. All tickets for the first night's movie sold out in advance.
Pfizer is planning to test distribution of its COVID vaccine candidate in 4 states. The experimental vaccine has excited health officials because Pfizer's preliminary data indicates it is more than 90% effective. However, distributing it may prove challenging.
Pfizer has kicked off a pilot delivery program for its COVID-19 vaccine in 4 U.S. states. The vaccine reached a major milestone this week when initial data showed it to be more than 90% effective. But one challenge Pfizer faces is the shipping of the vaccine that must be stored at -94 degrees Fahrenheit, significantly below the standard for other vaccines. The 4 U.S. states are Rhode Island, Texas, New Mexico and Tennessee, and different size, diversity of population, as well as immunization. In a statement on Monday, the company said they were hopeful the pilot would serve as the model for other U.S. states as well as international governments. They also clarified that the 4 states will not receive vaccine doses earlier than other states by virtue of the pilot. Pfizer expects to have enough safety data from the ongoing large-scale late-stage trials by the 3rd week of November, before moving ahead to apply for emergency use authorization.
Now we look at a vaccine from Russia. India and China may start producing Russia's Sputnik V vaccine against the CCP virus. This, according to Russia's RIA news agency, citing President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. Putin also proposed that the creation of a vaccine research center be sped up for BRICS countries, a grouping made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Russia has so far exported its vaccine to 4 countries: Belarus, Venezuela, India, and the United Arab Emirates. Russian scientists said the vaccine was more than 90% effective, but fewer cases were reported in the Russian trial, meaning there's less certainty that the vaccine's true efficacy is above 90%. That's compared with the Pfizer and BioNTech analysis. And a daring rescue. A British diplomat was spotted diving into a river to save a drowning Chinese woman. The incident was soon shared on social media, and now Chinese people are hailing him as a hero.
61-year-old Stephen Ellison is the Consul General of the UK to Chongqing, a sprawling municipality in southwestern China. But lately, Chinese citizens are calling him by another title, hero. A video circulating on social media captured a woman who appeared to slip on rocks moments before falling into deep water in a river. The footage shows her struggling in the current before disappearing under a footbridge. Moments later, she emerged face down, seemingly unconscious. At the time Ellison was walking by the river, he heard the commotion from bystanders and came to rescue, taking off his shoes and jumping into the water. With the help of a life belt, he dragged her to safety. Online, many netizens found it disappointing that Ellison was the only one to step in, despite the crowd of Chinese onlookers. According to one doctor from Beijing named Zhao Zhongyuan, the Chinese Communist Party's communist ideology has changed people's normal standard of behavior. Zhao fled China last year and now lives in Canada. When he lived in Beijing, he provided human rights activists with free medical treatment after they were released from detainment. As a result, he also became a target in the eyes of the regime and was forced to leave the country for his own safety.
In any country, to save lives and be courageous to do the right thing is considered normal, but not in China. One reason for it is that everyone is after money, but the main cause is the evil laws of the CCP. The regime made many laws to punish good and promote evil. Thus, people dare not do good deeds. This leads to indifference and selfishness within the entire society.
In China, there have been many cases of people who save others becoming victims of their heroic acts. For example, stories have emerged about those who have saved people from traffic accidents. Sometimes the victim will later chase their rescuer for money in order to cover their medical expenses. That's because the regime dedicates much less funding to healthcare and other welfare systems than is needed. Privileged upper classes and Communist Party officials enjoy most of the funding and resources, while little is left from middle and lower class citizens. Reporting by Chen Han, Xu Wenhui, NTD News.
Now we turn to the Chinese Communist Party's media mouthpieces. Over the weekend, Chinese state broadcaster CCTV attacked U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, using obscenities and unusually harsh language to assault his character. The broadcasting company referred to Pompeo as scum, using profane language. It went so far as to call him the world's largest instigator, labeling him as someone who often stirs up trouble. The broadcaster also compared him to a rogue gambler with red eyes, derived from a Chinese idiom. The phrase describes a desperate gambler on the brink of failure who's will to risk everything for one last bet. At the same time, another state mouthpiece newspaper, the People's Daily, also joined in on the attack. In an opinion piece, the paper denounced Pompeo as apocalyptic, arrogant, ignorant, sinister, misleading, and disruptive. Pompeo has faced repeated attacks from Beijing in the past, often following his outspoken criticism of China's human rights abuses and suppression of religious freedom. But just what triggered the particularly intense backlash from CCTV? Last week, Pompeo said in an interview that Taiwan has never been a part of China. Beijing's communist regime claims Taiwan as its territory and has threatened to reunite the island with the mainland China by force if needed. But democratic Taiwan staunchly rejects the claim. On top of that, Pompeo also expressed support for holding human rights violators accountable on Monday. In a Twitter post, he wrote that the U.S. will continue to implement the Magnitsky Act, a bill which helps bring human rights persecutors to justice. He added that so far, 55 people have been sanctioned under the act. Pompeo also explained the Magnitsky Act's origins, saying Sergei Magnitsky died in a Moscow jail 11 years ago today at the hands of Russian officials for exposing a vast government-connected tax fraud scheme. The U.S. enacted the Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act in his memory to promote accountability for human rights violators. Earlier, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo gave remarks on the ministerial to advance religious freedom. According to Pompeo, it's the largest human rights event in the department's history.
Assaults on religious freedom or belief are assaults on the first of those rights, and they are tragically happening all across the world. The Chinese Communist Party's war on faith targets Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and Falun Gong devotees alike. The party spares no one.
Secretary Pompeo went on to detail the religious persecution happening in Iran and North Korea as well. He encouraged everyone to work to continuously protect religious freedom. Pompeo concluded his speech by saying faith is eternal and tyranny must be overcome. The U.S. Department of Justice, or DOJ, recently reviewed its China Initiative program. Its aims to prosecute wrongdoing that benefits the communist regime. The DOJ stated that it would continue to go after the Chinese regime's criminal activities. On Monday, Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the Chinese Communist Party's theft of sensitive information and technology isn't a rumor or a baseless accusation. It's very real, and it's part of a coordinated campaign by the Chinese government, which the China Initiative is helping to disrupt. Wray added the FBI opens a new China-related counterintelligence case nearly every 10 hours and will continue our aggressive efforts to counter China's criminal activity. In 2020 alone, DOJ and the FBI exposed 6 people who came from China to study in the United States. They had concealed their affiliations to China's military on their visa applications. President Trump is reinforcing the country's hardline policies towards China. Stewart, a known critic of the Chinese Communist Party, has been named for a senior post at the U.S. Department of Commerce. His appointment is expected to help the Trump administration push through tougher policies on China. This, according to sources familiar with the matter. Stewart is an international trade lawyer and will be acting as Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Export Administration. Sources say the position was newly created for him. Details about the job's responsibilities are not yet available. A U.S. senator is going after management consulting firm McKinsey for its alleged ties to the Chinese Communist regime. It's the second letter to the company this year. Senator Marco Rubio is doubling down on his search for answers over McKinsey & Company's involvement with Beijing. In a new letter, Rubio presses the company to respond to questions about its dealings with the communist regime. He also asks how such relationships could impact the U.S. Rubio's November 13th letter follows another sent in the summer. He says the answers he got to the first letter weren't sufficient. Rubio notes some of the answers he got don't add up. He says McKinsey denied having the CCP as a client, but did admit to having worked for state-owned enterprises in China. Rubio also notes McKinsey evaded certain questions, such as whether any of the work was in areas of critical national interest to the U.S., like healthcare, pharmaceuticals, telecommunications, and military or civil defense. He also asked what precautions the company has in place to ensure that work done on behalf of the U.S. does not inform its work for the CCP. Rubio says he's concerned given McKinsey helped Beijing with its Belt and Road Initiative. Rubio says he remains concerned McKinsey is aiding the CCP in its efforts to overthrow the U.S. and questions whether the U.S. should continue using McKinsey given security risks. The vice chairman of a top Chinese securities regulator, the Securities Regulatory Commission, said on Tuesday that he hopes China-U.S. relations would be much better under a Biden administration. The results of the U.S. presidential election are not yet decided yet. Some states are still counting, and lawsuits about election fraud are underway. But Democratic candidate Joe Biden claimed himself as the winner. President Trump's administration has taken an increasingly hardline stance against China. Disputes have arisen over technology theft and trade injustice, to Hong Kong's freedom and China's handling of the outbreak of the CCP virus. Beijing has said it would expect a Biden administration to meet China halfway, indicating it expects a Biden administration to be more lenient. Japan and Australia agreed on a breakthrough defense pact on Tuesday. It allows troops to visit each other's countries for training and joint operations. A legal framework strengthens defense ties between the two U.S. allies. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison says this pact is a significant evolution. Tokyo and Canberra are seeking closer ties due to concerns about Chinese activity in the region. It includes militarization in the South China Sea and maneuvers around disputed islands in the East China Sea, among others. The countries have been negotiating the defense deal for 6 years. Now we turn to Germany. German carmaker Daimler said on Tuesday it will cooperate with China's auto group Geely. That's to build a next-generation combustion engine for use in hybrid vehicles. It's an effort to share development costs between the Chinese and the German groups. This would save the German carmaker a triple-digit million sum, implying an amount above $100 million. This, according to German newspaper Handelsblatt, citing Daimler sources. Following our recent report on President Trump's order to end U.S. citizens' investments in Chinese military companies, some of our viewers were unclear on how exactly Americans have been funding the Chinese military. Let's take a look. Beijing aims to turn its military, known as the People's Liberation Army or PLA, into a so-called world-class military. In order to further its development, the regime has been acquiring intellectual property, key research findings, and technological advances from around the world, sometimes by any means necessary. One of the pieces to the puzzle comes in the forms of China's national strategy of military-civil fusion. The strategy refers to how Beijing has hidden its military modernization within the country's privately owned civilian companies. At the same time, the regime is systematically reorganizing Chinese science and technological companies. That's to ensure they benefit both China's economy and military growth. Some of those private companies also sell financial products like securities to U.S. investors on public exchanges or indexes. The revenue helps fund the companies. So when Americans buy financial products from these index providers, they're actually financing Chinese companies tied to the country's military. One example comes from China Electronics Technology Group Corporation, or CETC. It's on the list of entities that aid China's military modernization. It's one of the country's top 10 military-industrial groups and is directly managed by the regime. CETC has nearly 60 second-tier companies and close to 200 third-tier companies across China. Among them, 7 are listed on the U.S. stock market, including Hikvision, which is also on the list of entities aiding the Chinese military. And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.